This episode of About 30 Minutes is brought to you by First Federal Community Bank. First Federal Community Bank has been serving Northeast Ohio since 1898. With 8 locations in the area, we're always nearby. Whether you are opening your first checking account, planning for retirement, or starting your own business, First Federal offers the modern convenience you expect and the personal service you deserve. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of About 30 Minutes. I'm your host, Chad Shoemaker, and today we have a guest from New Philadelphia High School. He is a teacher of over 20 years. This is Mr. Kip Brady. Welcome aboard. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm spectacular. I've never been this happy.
That's good. That's good.
Enjoying the wonderful Ohio, mysterious Ohio weather here.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yep.
But now you teach biology.
Yeah, I teach a variety of subjects, but mostly biology.
Well, what else is in there then?
I teach environmental science, AP Environmental Science.
Oh, okay.
I teach a class called Biology 2 that is mostly seniors. It's a natural history course, so it's kind of a unique course in that we learn the main goals are learning a lot of the species that are typical of our region, the geologic history.
Oh, okay.
That kind of stuff of our region. And then I teach a college credit class through OU. One semester is a biodiversity, conservation of biodiversity class, and the second semester is an ecology class. And then I also teach AP chemistry.
Man,
So-
oh my gosh, that's quite the mix.
Yeah, it's a planning nightmare.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's a lot of preps. I mean, I when I was still in a classroom, and I did that for 22 years, I think the most preps, I think I had like 4, and that's rough. But man, that many different topics. I mean, it's a good thing that science kind of blends together like that. Now, the chem that you teach, is that just general chemistry? Is that like kind of like start chemistry 100 type of thing?
So it's really like if you were a science major in college, your first 2 semesters of general chem.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's good. I mean, a lot of people think, well, chemistry, it's kind of like you have this life science kind of stuff and this chemistry stuff, but it's really, chemistry's a pretty great subject because it really connects everything together. And so, so I think, it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of work, but they're all subjects that I'm really interested and passionate about. So it is fun to do.
And that helps, I mean, tremendously. I can tell you that, when I was still in the classroom, I mean, with junior high school, which is what I did, the 7th and 8th grade, they just get a mix and match of everything. And there was always stuff, I know, within my department. Each of us had our own thing that we really, really liked to teach. And then we had 1 or 2 subjects that we were like, it's not my favorite in the whole wide world. But but to be able to take those, to say that, you can really and truly say, hey, I enjoy these and I really like them. That's definitely a plus.
Yeah, I have a great career that I've found my way into. I mean, getting to teach the courses that I do, it's pretty special.
So how did you get there? I mean, was your original intent to be in education, or was it kind of happenstance, or what happened? What went on?
I did go to college to I studied ecology, aquatic ecology, water science, and I really didn't know where I'd go from there. I always had an interest in science and nature. I also cross-country skied in college, so I went to Northern Michigan University, and I raced there as a varsity athlete at Northern.
Oh, man.
And so after college, I was so focused up there on skiing and trying to make an Olympic team and stuff that I didn't really think about what came next. And so I kind of graduated. I went on training for another year or so, and then I decided, I think it was my friend, teammate Brad Nelson, who said, well, I can think of at least 3 good reasons to become a teacher. June, July,
July and
August.
August.
And yeah, and so, but that really wasn't my motivation. But I had a lot of, inspiring people in my life, people who really were important, not just science teachers, but people that were, it turns out, teachers, English, and that were friends of my dad's, and we did a lot of stuff together. They were pretty cool guys, and we did all kinds of fun stuff, rock climbing and, whitewater paddling and stuff growing up. And so those were kind of the model, I think, that I had in my mind about like, oh, this would be a good career.
Right. Right. Now I should back up here a second. You're from, did you say Talmadge?
Yeah,
originally?
I went to Talmadge High School.
Okay. All right. So, and man, cross country skiing. I'm trying to wrap my brain around all the different things that you did. I mean, that you were experienced with. But getting you into the out of doors did that kind of motivate you towards the science idea and the time that you spent outside, the things that you were exposed to when you were younger?
Yeah. I mean, my dad was, avid outdoorsman. And so he got me into hunting and fishing, but then also all the other stuff I was talking about, climbing and paddling. And then my mom was a big gardener, and we had chickens and raised pigs sometimes and stuff. So I kind of grew up outdoors and always kind of hands-on doing that kind of stuff. And and so, when I was a kid, I mean, I was always like, for birthday or Christmas, I wanted a microscope, or I wanted a dissecting kit. And so yeah, I mean, I guess the writing was on the wall in a way from the time I was young.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been a very outdoor kind of person.
That's great. I mean, and I'm right there with you with the, I remember raising money. I don't even know what I did anymore, but I know I did something so I could get a microscope kit. I was probably about 10 years old. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So you ever
Fun
sit
stuff.
back and like look at the stuff that is out there now that is available to kids, scientific equipment. I mean, I know in the last few years that I got there, that I was in the business, that I had a USB microscope that you could plug in and then you could put it up on the big. We would have had that as kids. We would have gone nuts.
Sure,
I mean, that was
right?
great stuff.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff I think that kids have opportunities for today. I mean, just the ability to learn, with, these complex computerized phones that, you can search the internet and do all kinds of stuff. And, I tell students all the time when they have like senior papers to write, you don't really know the challenge, the struggle of writing one of those papers till you have to like have the library send to get the sources, like hard copies mailed there. It's like, now with research and stuff, I pretty much just go online and get PDFs of any journal articles that I want,
It's
instantly.
nice, isn't it?
Sure, yeah. It's like it's much, much easier. And so I think the idea, the ability to share information and do stuff with it and be creative with it, I think is, it's a lot further. It lets you do a lot more than you could have back when we were young.
Oh my gosh. You know what though? I do miss, I was a lot, and again, this goes back to, exposure to knowledge and that kind of stuff. When I was a kid in the summertime, I remember the first year that, my folks let me ride my bike to the public library. I think I was there just about every day. And, it was one of those things that anything that that would strike my fancy of like, I wonder how that works. I'd go to the library, and I mean, I can remember looking at periodicals and having to go down to the basement of the Dover Public Library and go through, stacks and stacks of old periodicals and stuff. I remember somebody teaching me how to use microfiche.
Yeah, the
and stuff.
microfiche. Yeah,
Stuff. I miss it, sort of,
stuff that people like kids these days, never understand.
They don't know the struggle.
Yeah, it was a different world, and yeah. So as far as like the science stuff that kids have access to today, is pretty great. But I think that a lot of the stuff, it's still the same. It's still by getting students out there and experiencing these things, that's all the good ideas and stuff don't come from the technology. They come from the realities on the ground, seeing things in context and asking questions, curiosity.
Absolutely. In 2024, how important is science?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's important in so many ways. And I think I always wonder about, like, in education, what challenges in society are we not meeting? I think that the understanding how science works and, like the nature of science, students are surprised. Like, we've published a couple of papers in the past few years, and how much money do you get paid when you publish a paper? And it's like I usually get the per page cost waived because I'm just a teacher. But
right.
Researchers aren't getting huge amounts of money because they publish a paper on something. They're paying to have their research published.
Mm-hmm.
How to design experiments and understanding where data comes from, and being able to be critical about, good data and useless data. There's plenty of examples of data out there that are just the design of how it was acquired is not good, and so the data is not useful to make decisions about. And of course we're bombarded with all kinds of misinformation.
Oh my gosh, and I think about even in the few years that I've been out, the statement that I hear more and more often is I've done my own research.
Oh, sure.
And that just kills me because I'm like, and I don't care what the topic is. It's like, do you really understand the concept of research, that it's not just I read a few web pages?
Right.
We're talking months and months and months just to kind of, form a kernel of an idea
Sure.
that you want to pursue or follow or learn more about. I mean, it's just, it's fascinating to me at how much knowledge we have available now. But I really do think that there's a lot more of it that we really have to be more discerning.
Oh, sure.
About what's there.
To speak to your point earlier about, like, everybody doing their own research, I think people need to understand that maybe this is a failing of education, but it's like there's a level of arrogance that is hard to tolerate, as far as, well, I can figure this out just as well as anybody. I mean, these people that have PhDs and study things, they are experts in that, and there is this kind of cult of dismissing the experts, and everybody has some sort of just label they get, like, well, they're the experts, and it's like some pejorative term or something. But it's we have to get back to the fact that we can't know everything. There are limits to what any one of us knows, and people who are experts really do have some expertise in these areas that we should at least humble ourselves and listen to.
And I think another one that I always used to say that I think is a key statement is good science is going to change. It's not necessarily always going to be the same. You've got to be able to understand new things are going to get discovered.
Sure.
And new things need to be learned and understood, and all that's going to do is keep making more things for you to understand. You can't just say this is how it is, the end. It's going to change. It's going to change.
Yeah, well, and I think most people who are scientists would, they're pretty humble people in the sense that, they have ideas, but it's a very humbling experience in the sense that things don't go always as you hypothesize or predict they're going to go, and there's just this ability. Everybody that I know that does science, they really approach the world with, the goal is to understand it, but the reality is that you can never fully understand everything, and I think that society generally would benefit from that kind of a mindset. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that, I think it was Wendell Berry maybe that said that ignorance isn't a completely solvable problem. That as we understand more stuff, the sphere of our ignorance is growing as well. There's still more to know always. Always.
Tell me about some of the great stuff that you do in your classroom. Some of these hands-on, because I read a few things and I heard a few things, but enlighten me. Tell me about some of the things you've got your kids doing.
Well, my my philosophy has always been that experience is the best teacher. And so I don't know, like there's a lot of things. Like today, my Bio 2 students were skinning squirrels. And I'm not joking.
Okay.
And it just so happens that happened today, but a former student of mine, she is an avid squirrel hunter. And so I had reached out to her about, hey, what do you think I could get? You think you could get me some squirrels? And we kind of did it at the end of the season, so we didn't get a lot of squirrels, but I had 5 squirrels, a couple that I had gotten, a few or 4 that she had sent me, so maybe 6, I guess. And so yeah, that was the big thing. We had studied mammals and in that, and I needed to get some skulls and skins for some of the stuff that I want to do with class, and so I was like, well, here we go, we're going to do this. And so they learned how to skin out a squirrel, and we're going to prepare the skulls tomorrow and stuff. But I think that there's a lot of things that a picture or somebody explaining to you just doesn't, that never did it for me. I was always I had to be engaged.
Exactly. I mean, that's, and with everything that you're competing with now to keep kids' attention.
Yeah.
I can remember too when the proposal was made to bring computers into the classroom. Every kid's going to get a computer, and I had taught computers up to that point. I'm like, well, that's great, but at the same time, I'd much rather see kids do things for real.
Yeah.
Oh no, but don't you understand? You can do virtual experiments and there's no cleanup. Well, where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
So
it sounds like a horrible time.
Yeah. It sounds like a real drag.
Sounds like I might as well stay home and watch TV then, kind of thing.
I can remember one of the ones that we did, which was so simple and so fun, was and I'd always save it for the end of the year because it was a huge mess. But with my 7th graders, we would dissect rotten logs. You bring that in. They loved it.
Sure.
I mean, just that simple idea of taking a hunk of wood that you pull out of the forest, sit it down, and start picking apart to see what's in there.
Right.
And then using microscopes and all that kind of stuff to inspect the things that you find. Fascinating stuff. I mean, now your squirrel experiment, with you're talking skinning just like if you were hunting.
Yeah,
same kind of prep.
Almost, except that the goal is to make what we call study skins, which is basically you try to get the whole animal, the head and everything, the skin, and then you just stuff it, and then you have like a specimen that has everything intact. It's when it dries, it's the same body dimensions and stuff like that. And so. That and then having the skulls is really useful. One of the things we learn in Bio 2 is, among species, I try to teach it, different groups of species. And so we talk about mammals and, identifying mammals from around here. Skulls are one of the good, ways, especially for the rodents, to distinguish among rodents. Skulls are the kind of where it's at.
You get to cook them down?
Yeah, and that's what we'll do tomorrow. But the plan originally was to make a gravy and mashed potatoes, but I don't know if we're going to get that this year. But I think there is so many things that are valuable about that. And so I don't want it to sound like that's all I do or anything, but that's like today. There's I really like the field experiences, like you mentioned, bringing in the logs,
right.
And that's kind of like the field experience. The beauty of bringing in the logs is that you don't have to take the field trip out to see those things, but it's something that everybody's seen on the ground, and so to take the time to look and see what's there is that's where the curiosity really gets going, and that whole thing, engagement. I think that. The only way that people learn is when they're engaged. They want to learn, There's nothing like lightning bolts that you throw as a teacher and everybody understands it. There has to be a way that people are engaged. Yeah. And so, other than that, I mean, I try to bring a lot of stuff in, and then I try to take students out. We try to do a lot of field field studies and
Okay.
things like that. It's kind of been a big part of my career.
Where do you go? Do you have like groups or organizations that cooperate, or do you just know little places to take kids, or what's going on?
Well, it's that's one of the cool things about New Philadelphia and Tuscarawas County is the sense of community, and so the earliest field experiences, we have multiple study sites. So like when we do field studies, like for a lot of my classes, we always try to design it as like a scientific study. So we have replicated design. So we don't just go to like, one forest, we go to multiple forests. A lot of times, like I study land use, and so I get my students involved in looking at how different types of land use shape biodiversity.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, the Norma Johnson Center, places the Tusk Parks have, like the Norma Johnson Center, the Wilderness Center, some of their properties, they have satellite properties here in Tuscarawas County, for example. And then a lot of private landowners that, when you start talking to people and they're like, well, I have a friend that has like a 40-acre or 50-acre forested area, and they get a hold of you and say, yeah, I'd love to have your students come out. And so, there's sometimes we've done some pretty big studies that have ended up published in scientific journals and stuff that were, we had 10 different sites. We had 5 forests that were on old strip mines that grew up and 5 that were not. And we compared salamander diversity between those. And,
oh my gosh. That just sounds awesome.
Oh, it was great. That was that year was amazing. It'd probably never be replicated, but we did, the scale of it was huge. Like we did 2 weeks of surveying in the fall and 2 weeks of surveying in the spring. And to have the numbers of students, because you can't take the same group of students out for 4 weeks in a year.
Right.
But we did, all the 10th grade biology students at the high school, all the 7th graders, all the 5th graders in our district, and then some of the 3rd and 1st graders even, paired the little kids with the high school kids and took them out and collected this data. And we used digital cameras. It was all grant funded from a grant we got from the EPA. And so each group would have a digital camera, and then I would just go through at the end of the day and go through lots of photos of salamanders and count them up. But we ended up having a really good study that had some interesting findings. And, like I said, that was in the journal Restoration Ecology, which is a professional ecology journal.
That is just awesome. So I'm told too that did you have a wilderness camera someplace that's you took a deer out someplace to see who was going to eat it?
Yeah, so that's actually that's the fun thing about doing this stuff is that the kids drive, they come up with a lot of good ideas, and the best educational experiences have been, and this is really what I shoot for all the time, is I don't know the answer to this either, and I know some methods that we could get at the answer, and so I'll help them with the methods, but we're all learning the answer to these questions together, and that's when you're really doing science, right? When you don't know what the answer is. And so I have a bunch of, well, not a bunch, but I have about 10 game cameras from an earlier grant from a different project that we had. And so I told my ecology class that, I've got these game cameras. I always want to find like a good study to use them. And so one of the kids had a deer that was hit out in front of their house. And so I was like, well, we could, put that out in the woods. And so her dad actually loaded it in their 4x4 and carried it back in the woods for us. And it was really cool because I thought, well, we'll probably see some coyotes or something, but I'm always interested to see, do we see any foxes or anything? And the first thing that came in was a bobcat.
That's awesome.
And we were just like floored. And so that started a whole nother line of research where right now that group is actually, we've had a number of deer carcasses now that's what we use my truck for, drag deer carcasses into the truck, and then we take it out. Like we have a couple deer still out at different places with cameras on them, and we're looking. They're looking specifically at like habitat use with bobcats and other predators, but it's interesting, and really what we're finding is a little bit different from what other people who have been studying bobcats kind of recolonizing Ohio have found, and so it's interesting. And I think one of the things with science that students a lot of times, I think it kind of comes across that like all this stuff is known, and there's just a lot of stuff that's not known. And like you had said, it's always open to change. You've new lines of questioning and new ways of studying questions. You come up with some new insights, and so yeah, it's fun stuff. So we're learning a lot, and actually, the ODNR has a Student Wildlife Research Symposium for these kinds of projects where students can go in the spring, and it's just like any other scientific conference where I have a couple of groups of students, 3 groups of students that are going to do 3 different projects that we've got going.
Oh, and the kids get to present.
And they'll present their research.
Oh my
there.
gosh,
Yeah.
that's outstanding.
Yeah,
That
they're with students from all over the state that also go, and
that's great.
So
that is fabulous. All here, I might say, in Tuscarawas County.
Yeah.
So
yep.
did you ever think about, when you came here to start your teaching career, did you think you'd be staying this long?
I didn't know, I mean, when I started teaching, I wasn't even really, and I feel bad saying this because, people sometimes struggle and they want to go back to their home school or something. I mean, I didn't go to school here or anything, but I wasn't really even looking for a full-time job when I got it, and I didn't know if I was going to stay. And I thought, well, actually had surgery on one of my feet, and so I was going to cast. And I was like, well, I'll do this till I, get back up and running, kind of thing. I was doing some other athletic stuff at the time. And but what I realized really quickly was that I really loved teaching, and I loved the place. Philly has been a great place to have a career. I've been surrounded by great people for the most part. I've had, like a lot of these things that have been really cool experiences for students, and unique, I think, for our school to have some of the stuff that we do, and publishing papers and stuff, getting lots of grant money to pay for these projects. The thing that it always comes down to, there's a whole bunch of other people that have to say yes and say, yeah, okay, we can try that. And some of this stuff is out there, because it's not something that, you're going to go to a college and learn to do as a teacher or whatever. And so, to be in a district that has been, I've mostly had people that said, yes, let's go for it, has been a special thing, I think.
That's exceptional. This is what keeps you here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like I said, it's been a great place to end up. It wasn't like planned that way, but it worked out that way. I've got a great situation. I get to work with, my best friend, my wife, who
is also a teacher,
teaches biology at New Philly High School, and our boys have grown up there at New Philly. Our youngest Elliot is a senior this year, so we'll be empty nesters after this year. And but both Owen and Elliot have had great education experiences, great groups of friends, huge, deep connections that, my oldest, he's a sophomore in college, and he and his buddies still, whenever they get a chance, they're back. They all come from their different universities. They still get together and hang out. I mean, I didn't have that kind of connections where I went to school, and I think that's a kind of a special thing about our area.
Absolutely. I can totally get behind that, and I can totally understand it. We are just about out of time, actually, but
by fast.
Before, as I told you, it goes very quickly. What's somebody going into teaching? What? Because you and I had discussed before we went on about nobody really prepares you, for the things that are going to happen.
Oh yeah. In
this day and age, what's the most important thing you can say to a person who's considering going into education? What is something that you wish somebody would have told you ahead of time?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of things about like classroom management and stuff like that that are just, you'll figure that out. You'll just figure that out. And, I think, the biggest thing for me is that I think would be valuable is not being afraid to try. Like, I think a lot of times people limit the scale of things that can be done in education, and it's always about the student experience. It should always be about their experience and engagement. What's going to be the most engaging, deepest learning experience for them? And those things come with all kinds of, the most engaging, crazy things are the things that they're just not common. Mm-hmm. It's not something you're going to order. It's not a curriculum you're going to buy. And so you have to be brave and look for those things and then not be afraid to just go for it.
Right. That's excellent. And I completely agree with that 110%. Well, Kip, thank you so much for coming and joining with us today and chatting with us and telling about your experiences and how you live Tusk. So we really appreciate your time. Folks, that's going to do it for today. We will be back sooner than you think with another episode of About 30 Minutes. Thank you. This episode of About 30 Minutes was brought to you by First Federal Community Bank. First Federal Community Bank has been serving Northeast Ohio since 1898. With 8 locations in the area, we're always nearby. Whether you are opening your first checking account, planning for retirement, or starting your own business, First Federal offers the modern convenience you expect and the personal service you deserve. Live Tusk strives to create a community of young adults living and or working in Tuscarawas County, Ohio, by assisting opportunities for social interaction and networking. We provide an awareness about the resources, activities, events, art, outdoor rec, education, and career opportunities in Tuscarawas County to encourage positive engagement about the quality of life in this area. We believe in a future where our community is a beacon of opportunity, known for its strong sense of belonging and exceptional quality of life. Our City Productions is a one-stop shop for professional quality and affordable video production, photography, social media management, and video conversion and archiving. Be sure to visit us at ourcityproductions.com and follow us on Facebook.